Let's talk about leg strength. And in particular today, I want to talk about the value of leg strength for climbers, and I want to talk the value of single leg training. Now, when most of us think about leg strength, we'll think about the back squat. We'll think about putting a barbell on our shoulders, squaring up our feet and squatting down to below parallel and coming back up. And that's a fine exercise if you can do it, but I argue that almost no adult can learn to squat well if they haven't done squatting as a teenager or as a younger person. So when we look at developing leg strength, I think the single leg exercises are awesome. The problem with the squat, the traditional squat, is it's hard to bail out from. There's a compressive force on the spine, and it's a pretty technical lift. And like I said, if you can do it, it's an excellent choice for developing some leg strength. But I will argue that in no situation in rock climbing or in most sports do we press with both legs at the same time on an even surface. Maybe in a rowing machine or something like that, but when we're bouldering, when we're climbing, when we're hiking up a hill, when we're cycling, when we're running, always our legs are on either different planes or at different positions. And so developing single leg strength and stability is a good idea to do in the gym. One of the really great things about split positions is that most people can figure them out pretty quickly. If you took your grandmother into the gym and tried to teach her to do a front squat or a back squat, you may never get there. You might not be able to get the mobility in the hips or the ankles. You may not be able to get them to stay straight upright. And the chances of injury get pretty high. On the flip side, if you said, let's go into the gym, we're going to find a place for you to balance, and we're going to try to do a split position squat or a lunge style movement, most people can figure it out pretty soon. And so we love to start people out, even the person that has not very good leg strength, not very good balance, in a split position. And we can put them between two stable implements, like a couple of plyo boxes or a handle that they can hold on to, and they can squat down and come back up. And if that athlete can do 5 or 8 of these movements without too much pain, not too much overload, then you can consider adding load to that or adding a balance component. The first balance component is just to simply take away the box or the handle that they're holding on to. We can start to add load by putting dumbbells or kettlebells in the hands. And then we can advance this split position a few different ways. One advance of the split position squat is to do a dynamic version of it, a lunging exercise. And we can do front lunges or back lunges or walking lunges, but that's really just an explosive version of the split squat. One of my favorite exercises is a rear foot elevated split squat. And that changes the ratio a little bit, puts a little bit more load on the front leg. And we start to develop really good single leg strength if we do this split position. And I understand you're not going to lift near as much weight as you could with a squat, but our goal is not to lift a ton of weight. Our goal is to develop a strong body with the idea that we're going to be rock climbers. Sticking with our same strength rules, we do 3 or 4 sets, no more than about 5 or 6 reps on these things, and we keep pushing those loads up really, really high. Climbers are really afraid of bulking up their muscles, and if we keep the reps low, if we keep the sets low, and we keep those loads high, we're going to see a tremendous amount of strength come along without bulking up. And I think it's super important to get past your preconception about that and think again back to what we've talked about before. If we're going to describe a road cyclist and we say, there are these guys riding road bikes down the road and they look like this, the first thing we're going to talk about is the size of their thighs. And are their thighs big because they were lifting heavy, heavy loads? Or are their thighs big because they've been doing very, very light loads for high repetitions? And so we've sort of got this mixed up idea of how strength training and weight training and bodybuilding really mix together. And it's important to understand that training pure strength, the way that we're recommending is not going to result in a hypertrophy response in those legs. Single leg strength is also super important for climbing. There's so many times that you'll get a foot on a high hold, or you'll be pressing out the top of a boulder and you don't quite have that strength to push your body up with that one leg, and you're actually having to rely on your arms even more, even though you've got really pumped forearms or tired fingers or what have you. And so as we develop more and more single leg strength, we're going to be able to do more efficient climbing. The split squat and the Bulgarian split squat, or the rear foot elevated split squat, are excellent ways of developing this single leg strength. We can also do it through step ups, where you're stepping up onto a box. And one of my favorite exercises is the single leg squat. The single leg squat is not quite the same as a pistol squat. Pistol squat is a single leg squat where we hold the non-working leg out in front. We go into a very deep position close to the floor and then come back up out. There's a few problems with this. A lot of people can't handle that flexion and extension in the lumbar spine. They just don't have the mobility back there. A lot of people can't handle that pull apart force at the knee that happens when the hamstring starts pressing into the calf. And a lot of people just don't have the balance for it. And so the pistol squat is sort of a specialist tool for certain athletes. I do think single leg squatting is really important though, and the way that we solve that is we have the athlete stand on a slightly elevated box. We use a 12-inch box at our gym, and then squat down to like a marker point using another box and then come back up out of it. That way I can take that other leg and it can drop down below the level of my other foot. I can use it for a little bit of balance, and I can take myself only down to a range that is appropriate for my low back and my knee. Generally, we can get people down to a parallel position, coming back up out of it. And a lot of times we'll just put a 10-pound weight or a couple of 5-pound dumbbells in their hands to assist with balance. Single leg squat's awesome, helps you develop that balance in that one leg and a tremendous amount of single leg strength. It's also pretty safe on the low back. And a lot of my climbers have these back issues that we're always working around. So we got to be aware of that at all times. I think the important take home here is that single leg training may not produce the same amount of huge strength that you would get out of pure deadlifting and squatting, but that might not be the goal that we're really pursuing. We always have to ask ourselves, how strong is strong enough? And to me, strong enough is being able to do the movements of the sport efficiently and economically. It's also about being able to handle the training loads and still being able to go climbing. And if I get really deep into the weeds of lifting really heavy barbells, pulling with a lot of weight on my waist, doing what have you to chase strength even further, I've probably left the path of wisdom when it comes to sport-specific training. So as you develop your leg strength program, I think it's fine to do goblet squats, front squats, even back squats if you're good at them, but I would really encourage single leg strength as part of your program. I think the rear foot elevated split squat and the single leg squat are just game-changing exercises for climbers. They're very simple to implement. They're pretty easy to do, and you don't need to put a lot of weight on in order to make them really hard.